A very good afternoon to all of you. Okay, so we had started with the Indian political thought and we finished a substantial portion yesterday. So today we will be doing the day 16 lecture. Okay, there is Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, Aurobindo Ghosh, and M.N. Roy. Very important themes that are very much applicable across your ethics paper, all right, also across your essay paper, right, not only political science. And these concepts that you will be studying are also crucial for paper 1 of GS. So we will be starting with Aurobindo Ghosh. I will take up the summarization of the topic today, okay, and we'll take up M.N. Roy. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan is not very conceptual, okay, it is more factual, so we will not discuss that now, right. So, but yeah, there are a lot of conceptual things in Ghosh and M.N. Roy, all right. So, with respect to Aurobindo, all right, so he is the major school of thought, okay, that he belongs to is known as the idealist stream, all right. So we have different schools. We have the humanist stream, we have the idealist stream, and thus Aurobindo belongs to the idealist stream. Now, what is the major premises, okay, of the idealist stream is that idea, spirit, or consciousness, right, is the essence of the entire universe. So the spirit in the form of God, all right, consciousness of man, right, and idea that is there in the mind, right, is the essence of universe. Now, what is the aim of the idealist stream? What it seeks to do? Okay, it seeks to rediscover the cultural identity of India. Now, why do they want to seek the cultural identity of India? Okay, the major goals have been first to build a national movement on the foundation of this cultural identity, okay, which unites the people on certain factors, okay, which are embedded in the Indian culture, right. So yes, to build a national movement on the foundation, then to enable India to play its role in the universal moral order. Now, India's role in the universal moral order is how we want to have an integrated humanity, okay, one ideal humanity, when we want to achieve the perfection, when we want to tell people what is the right thing to do, what is it that they should seek for. So, India's contribution also, okay, and India's the national movement in India is not only beneficial for Indians. When India will be liberated from this British imperial rule, okay, we will be able to be our own self, and our own self is embedded in Indian philosophy in such a way that we want to contribute to the unity of the humankind, okay. So yes, very much a very good vision that he held, okay, that we will be able to do everything by our own principles of morality, and which have been a result of the ancient cultural rich heritage past. So yes, very much India's role in the universal moral order. Now, so the school of thought, okay, that he belongs to is the idealist stream. Now let's see, he is also known very much as the prophet of Indian nationalism, and one of the very big contributions, remarkable contributions, right, in the cultural nationalism, because he had made it as the basis of the nationalism that we sought to do. And he is very much known as the great synthesizer, all right, by whom? By Roman Roland. So what was it that he synthesized? So it actually said that he said that West has focused too much on materialism, okay, and somewhere deeply they have ignored ideas, okay, they have ignored morality, or they have ignored the importance of spirit and God, okay, in their entire philosophical tradition, right. So there is more of earth, okay, in the Western philosophy. Not that India has actually ignored earth, earth has also been there, okay, in our own ancient writings, but the West has focused too much on earth. So material contribution. So what is it that will lead to a integral union of humans across the world? How will that be achieved? Will only one philosophy lead to this integral humanity? No. So it is seeking that idealism and spiritualism that is embedded in the Indian Vedantic tradition. Okay, in the Indian Vedantic tradition, will if these two things come together, then we can have one entire humanity which is integrated. Okay, so his aim was to contribute from this aspect. Okay, so what was the objectives of his political philosophy? First, obviously, was the Swaraj for India, okay, which is benefit of the world, right? Not only of the Indians, and a spiritual message in the Indian liberation movement. Okay, so our sorry, please excuse me. Yes. So objectives of his political philosophy is one for the Swaraj of India, and the spiritual message has to be imparted in the Indian liberation movement. Now, so what is the critique that he provided for the moderates philosophy? Okay. So he criticized the politics of petitions, prayers, right? Of the moderate leaders. And why he did that? Because it did not provide any role for the masses. है ना? Therefore, he pleaded for adoption of more strong and new methods that has to come into being. Right? He had the belief of moderates in liberal democracy, okay, which emphasizes more on materialism and individualism, was criticized by him. Okay, so he says that there have to be stronger methods, there has to be more belief in the masses, the potential of masses in that sense. Now, what have been the evil effects, okay, of the British rule? So he said that British was a curse for majority. It was a curse for the majority. Now, he's actually the British rule had sapped the moral and mental energies of Indian people. Okay, I mean, Indian people, Indian civilization was not being itself because of the yoke of the British rule. Right? Spirit of India could be freed only by what? Only by complete independence. Okay. So these are the basis of on which he speaks of the evil effects of the British rule. Now, so what is his concept of individual? All right. So he says that every individual comprises of three important elements. Right. Now he says that the three important elements, one is the spirit. Okay. Spirit of every individual is eternal. Okay. Right. Soul is always keeping on developing with period, with time, and body always changes. Okay, right? Body is always the most changeable element. So what does he say? Does he mean that when we are talking of spirit, soul developing, I mean, and body, which is also a vital element, he says that every individual, okay, has to realize his true existence, and in order to realize his true existence, for which he is actually come into this world, right, even the material ends are important. If the person is not given the material basis of, there is no material basis to life, then he will never be able to reach to that transcendental stage, right? So he says that every individual's spirit or God is ultimate destination of the life of man. Okay. So he very much puts out the essence of why individual, what is individual comprised of, what is the aim of individual in life. Is it clear? Now, let's move to the relation between individual and community. So when he says that individual has important elements, individuals eventual aim in life is spirit, okay, and to know his or her true existence. So what is it that, what should be the relation between individual and community? Should individual submit himself or herself before the community? So he says no, okay. There is nothing like subordination of individual to the community, okay. Man should discover his real existence, okay, and truth inherent in him. So why man has to actually discover this real existence and truth is only because when there will be perfect individuals, there will be perfect community, and when there is perfect community, perfect nations, and then this entire perfectionism leads to an ideal unity in the world, okay. So this is why he never says that man's individualism or anything has to be ignored, okay. So like the West, which gives importance to freedom, which gives importance to individual, he also gives importance to individual. But individual's aim of life is not only material, okay. So the whole life does not have to be spent only in achieving the best material means, right? Life also is on the spiritual plane, and which has to seek for realizing that why man has come into this world and what is the ultimate truth, okay. So that's why we call them the idealist. Now, okay, so what is Aurobindo's philosophy? Okay, what is the basis of his philosophy? So the basis of his philosophy, that he links development of individual, okay, right, with the national development and the development of the world. So this is also known as the philosophy of consciousness. Now let's understand that how he talks about the philosophy of consciousness. Now the basis of deriving his views on nationalism comes from this link, okay, that is the philosophy that he is holding. One, that there is development of individual which is embedded with the development of the world, okay, and with national development, and how this philosophy of consciousness has certain elements within the Indian Vedantic tradition, and how this will has an ultimate end, okay, or he calls it the teleological end, or the transcendental evolutionism that he is talking of. And that's where he derives from this particular philosophy of consciousness his views on religion, okay. Please be very slow, understand what he wants to say by the philosophy of consciousness, okay. Now this philosophy of consciousness is the transcendental Vedantic philosophy. What is it? Transcendental Vedantic philosophy. Now, so there are three important ideas which are associated with this philosophy of consciousness. The first is known as Vedantism. Okay, now what does he mean by this Vedantism? So he says, okay, that there is one absolute truth. And what is this absolute truth? Okay, that Brahma contains the absolute truth. Okay, Brahma is the only truth. Okay, and the entire external world is not true. It is an illusion. So the entire truth pervades within the Brahma. Okay, rest else, everything that we see around us is an illusion or Maya. So here Brahma is absolute truth. Okay, rest is illusion, or he says is as Maya. Okay, now the second important thing that he talks about is harmony. Now, what is this harmony about? Okay, so he says that there is no distinction between our inner matter, okay, and the external world. We cannot have any, there is no, what do we say, uh, watertight division between internal world and the external world. And both are vitally linked. Okay, so he says that when there is no distinctions between the inner world and the internal world, the every philosophy that we are seeking to propound, okay, every philosophy will only contain what? Partial truth, right? Means there, if there is West materialism, it is also partial truth of life, okay? If there is only spirit or essence or idea, right, in the Indian philosophy, it is also partial truth. So every philosophy of that we really seek to arrive at, okay, it should be an integral philosophy, means it should be comprehensive philosophy. It should have all the elements of truth, okay, that is, and thus there should be harmony in that sense. Is it clear? So every philosophy should be integral in nature. Is it clear? And there has to be harmony. There should not be any conflict, okay, between different philosophies in that sense. Now, the last important basis of his philosophy is the teleological evolution. Okay. Now, what is this teleological evolution? Where is it that we have to reach? Okay. So that we can reach to his ideas on nationalism. So, we want to achieve what? Every individual wants to achieve Sat, Chit, Anand. Okay. And that is self-realization. कैसे होगा? Self-realization, when we will reach this transcendental stage. It is teleological evolution or transcendental. So he describes it in a very simple way. Okay, please try to understand. So we have a life. Okay, how we will reach? We have every individual's life is guided by consciousness, in the sense it is guided by the mind. Okay, and this mind, okay, continuously seeks to go to the more and more refined format of becoming a super mind. And when we will reach this idea of super mind, okay, from the normal ideas, from normal understanding of things, we will eventually reach to the stage of self realization. So you understand how the entire philosophy, okay, his views on nationalism is actually based on these three principles. Okay, one is the Vedantic ideals, okay, which says Brahma is the ultimate truth. One is about where he seeks to harmonize different philosophical truths, okay, and then he says that the ultimate aim, okay, for every individual in this world is to reach the stage of self realization or Sat Chit Anand. I hope this is very clear. I just, because directly moving on to the nationalism sounds very absurd, so I was laying the basis of what is his vision or how he derives at this nationalism. Now, so let's see views on nationalism. So what is his nationalism based on? Okay, it is based on the Vedantic philosophy, right? And what does the Vedantic philosophy say? There we were talking of how there is unity. So it is unity and oneness that exists between man and God. Okay. So like individual, okay, whose soul grows with time. So we said mind, then we said how there is super mind. This super mind person who develops this super mind, okay, he becomes the superman. and only a Superman achieves to the stage of Sat Chit Anand or self-realization. Okay, so he says that there is unity and oneness in man and God. Okay, and like individual, even nation has a soul which grows over a period of time. Okay, so how we grow, even the nation grows that way, right? And thus he links it to the religion. And he says nationalism is like a religion which comes from God, okay, and it is divine in nature, right? Because there is what? There is a link between individual and there is link with God. And because of this link that exists between individual and God, how the soul of individual also develops, the nation's soul also develops. And because both souls are growing, okay, we link that how nationalism is eventually derived from God and it is divine in nature. So why this whole sphere of religion comes, okay, is because his idea is based on the Vedantic philosophy. Is it clear? Now he says, therefore, individual, community, the nation and the world, okay, all of them are integrated harmoniously. There is no dichotomy, okay, or there is no conflict between these elements. Is it clear? Therefore, nationalism for him is transcendental. What do you mean by nationalism for him is transcendental? It means nationalism for him is more a spiritual bond. And this spiritual bond, okay, which is there in the Indian philosophy, okay, Indian Vedantic philosophy, where every individual, community, nation and world are integrated harmoniously, is very much different from the nationalism that is embedded in the European civilizations, which is very what? Exclusive in nature, right? It is very aggressive, है ना? It is not having integration with other elements. But in India, it is not like that. Okay, in India, we consider, since there is bond between individual and nation, and their souls are connected, and the soul is derived from this God, and which is having the divine basis, there is everything which is integrated harmoniously. Is it clear? And since it is a spiritual bond, and since it is derived from God, he says that nationalism is something which cannot be crushed. Even if a British rule is trying to curb the philosophy of nationalism, it will re-emerge itself again. Okay, that is what. So just don't try to mug up the basis of his philosophy ke likh diya religion hai, he calls it shakti, he calls it super shakti, but how he derives at this nationalism, okay, ऐसा कैसे हो रहा है, he is giving a very nice way of reaching at this stage of understanding his views on nationalism, which is very important. तो जब आंसर भी हम लिख रहे हैं तो हमें इसी तरीके से we have to reach, and then we have to give his views. Is it clear? So first we will be very much talking of philosophy, okay, of the consciousness, how there is linkage between God and divine, how it is a transcendental spiritual bond. It cannot be, it is super shakti. Is it clear? Now, okay, so I will first move on to the question of Aurobindo only, so that you get a better view. There are other ideas also of Aurobindo, right? But they are not very much difficult to understand. So I'm not discussing, but this is a very much most key idea, his views on nationalism, and UPSC also continuously keeps on asking. Okay, so you should be very, very clear with this particular idea. So now let's see how we derive at his views on nationalism. So elaborate Sri Aurobindo's view, okay, on nationalism. तो अभी क्यों बात ही क्यों करना है, ऐसा औरबिंदो ने क्या कर लिया नेशनलिज्म में जिसकी वजह से हम इनके बारे में पढ़ रहे हैं. ओके, so he is a very much well known, okay, philosopher. So he is very much known as the prophet. So give it as a contributory role of what Aurobindo has played in the idea of nationalism. क्या इनके आइडिया में ऐसा कुछ था जो पहले कभी नहीं था? तो how we compare it that way? So along with Bankim Chandra, okay, Tilak and Dayanand, he developed the theory of nationalism in India. So there were other people also before him who spoke of nationalism. He was an ardent nationalist, right? Nationalism was not only a mission, a goal of life, but an end in itself, okay? To be pursued as vigorously as the religion, okay? So since he gives it a spiritual basis, a transcendental basis, a spiritual bond, okay? So it is the what? It is the end, and it has to be continuously done. Why it has to be continuously done? So we understood that individual has a mind, okay, and this continuously develops with period, and then this super mind develops, and when the super mind develops, the person becomes superman, and this superman will only achieve what idea? This superman will achieve self realization and Satchit Anand, which he seeks to really do, okay. So basis, तो पहले इनका introduction, his contributory role, okay, to nationalism. Then we say that what is the basis of his nationalism? So talk about the Vedantic philosophy, okay, and it speaks about the unity and oneness in man and God. So there was an essential unity in India despite the existence of outward differences because of the spirit of unity and oneness that pervaded it, okay. For India, right, for rejuvenation, India needed Shakti or the power that was physical, moral, material and spiritual. The power of a strength nation depended on the unity of her nation. So why we needed nationalism? क्या जरूरत थी? We needed a Shakti, okay, so that particular Shakti provided all of us to come together, okay, and this unity was not only in the physical sense to fight the British or not only the material sense, it was also in the spiritual moral sense, okay, right. Now, so yes, being influence, talk about the influence of Bankim Chandra, he declared that India was Mother India, okay, which represented united power and Shakti of millions of her children. Mother India represented infinite energy of her people, okay. He identified Mother India with God and maintained that it was God's divine mission to set India free. Now we come directly to the philosophical basis. So first we have spoken his major, why he spoke so much on nationalism. What was the need that India needed the philosophy of nationalism in that sense, okay. Who was the influence on him? Influence was Bankim Chandra. And what was the idea that he derived from Bankim Chandra? The idea of Mother India, okay, right. Why we have to talk about Mother India? Because that will again unite people, right, and it will give a lot of vigor, it will give a lot of energy to the Indian national freedom struggle. So now we come back to the philosophical basis. So like like individual, nation has a soul, and like soul of nation also grows like soul of individual. So nationalism is not simply an intellectual concept of political program, okay. Thus it is a religion coming to us from God. Indian community and nation and world are integrated in a harmonious manner, okay. Now the divine predisposition behind Indian nationalism, okay, means there is a divine predisposition that he is linking. So when we have linked it with God, when we have linked it with the divinity as the basis, we say that why we needed divinity, because India's freedom had a deep divine purpose, because India's freedom is represented that time spirit that would liberate resurgent Asia and all the subject people in the world. तो हमारा एम ये नहीं था कि हम अकेले फ्री हो जाए, or we only get free by physical freedom, but freedom should be in all sense, okay, in the sense of spirit also. So it is God's wish that India become awakened and it awake the mankind. Nationalism survives in the strength of God, hence it cannot be defeated or crushed. So are you understanding the flow? I will put the structure back, but I am just explaining you this so that there is more clarity when we will redraw the structure. So he says, okay, that nationalism is not simply a pursuit of collective political interest. It is also realization of universal spirit or God. And how it is different from the European nationalism, how West looks at things. Okay, we don't have a narrow nationalism in that sense. So how he looks at it more as religion and other things. Now, very important that why he said that nationalism is so vital and how Swaraj is very important for India. Okay, so the demand of Swaraj was a natural corollary of the ideal of nationalism. He believed that every nation on earth had a peculiar bent of its own. Its individuality could not be maintained unless people are free. Okay, that is why he says a foreign rule, however benevolent it may be, okay, never foster the centers of strength in the life of subject nation on whose relation it always stands, but as a parasite. So even if the British rule was very benevolent, okay, it was acting more like an octopus, okay, means it is trying to bring people within its ambit rather than letting them free to be themselves, okay, and people could never grow as a separate entity and realize its destiny until this was done. So he calls this that Indian people should uphold the Sanatan Dharma, okay, which is coterminous with nationalism. This view also has to come. So then you can give a critique. So I have given a very comprehensive basis of theory of nationalism of Aurobindo. Please don't have any doubts. Now we'll come back to how the question had to be structured so that you are more clear now that the concept is clear to you. So we are talking of Aurobindo's views. Okay, views on nationalism. All right. So first we will be giving an introduction of Sri Aurobindo. Is it clear? Then was he the first one? No. So before him also there were others who spoke about nationalism. Then okay, then you talk about how he was influenced by Bankim Chandra and which concept he adopted. Okay, concept of Mother India. So then talk of what was the need of nationalism in India. What is the ultimate aim? Okay, right. Then criticize the British rule and how it has actually troubled many things, and that is why nationalism is need of the hour. Then you talk of the philosophical basis of nationalism in the Indian Vedantic philosophy. Okay, so what is it that we are eventually seeking to? To develop a spiritual bond. So nationalism is like what? It is like a religion in that sense. So how individual is linked with soul, how individual and nation soul grow together. So first introduction, then views of Bankim Chandra's concept, what he adopted, what is the need of nationalism in India, what is the philosophical basis of nationalism, okay. Then other dimensions of nationalism he is talking of. Then compare Indian and European nationalism. Okay, right? And then eventually you can also give a criticism of his own, of his view, because he could not bring it within the ambit. All right. Here you also talk of Sanatan Dharma in the other dimension, very important, which was coterminous with nationalism for him. Now you understood how the flow of the answer has to be. सब कुछ मतलब ना तो philosophical basis पहले दिया है, right? कुछ भी आगे पीछे लिखते हो, no structuring, no flow. European nationalism कहीं किसी ने लिखा नहीं, half of the people don't write. No, you have to, you know, if is उनका contributory role इतना important क्यों है? What is it that he has laid which is so different? Okay, so if this is the idea that would have been followed, your answer would have been in a better structure and format. Okay, now let's move to a very important thinker. Okay, M.N. Roy. Now, so he was a very important authority with respect to Marxist issues, communist issues in India. Okay, and from the beginning of his life, he was a very important national revolutionary, right? With period, he became a follower of, you know, the communist and the Marxist philosophy. Then, with since there were certain differences, okay, that developed between him and Lenin, right? Then he moved on from there to actually criticizing Marxism, and then becoming like a follower of Gandhi. When he was a Marxist, he very much was critical of Gandhi, and there was a huge criticism that he offered to Gandhi. At the end of his career, then he talks about radical humanism as a philosophy, because he feels that there has to be brought about a philosophical revolution in that sense. So he talks about that, and then he also starts praising Gandhi. So there has been a lot of transitions in his understanding of different philosophies at different periods of time. Okay, so with respect to his critique on Marxism can be a question in your exam. Also criticism with respect to other philosophies and Gandhi, that also can be a question. Major question that is largely have been asked till date is his views with respect to radical humanism. But since UPSC is venturing into other aspects of thinkers also, so don't be just studying radical humanism and finishing it off. Okay, you need to know the other ideas of the thinker also, because फिर बोलोगे मैम हमने M.N. रॉय तो सारा पढ़ा था पर जो पूछा वो हमें पता नहीं था. तो give equal focus and attention on these thinkers. Is it clear? Now, so ideational journey. Now, first let's talk about what was his ideational journey. Until 1920, he was a national revolutionary and participated, okay, very keenly in all the events. From 1920 to 30, he was a Marxist, okay. From 1930 to 40, he became a radical humanist, and 1940s onwards, okay, he was a propagator of radical democratic party. Now, So he provided a critique of Marxism. Now many of you will know a lot of critique of Marxism, but none of you structure it correctly. Critique कैसे लिख देंगे? बस लिखते जाएंगे कुछ भी. So first say why he tried to provide a critique of Marxism. What was his own idea that he criticized Marxism? What were the elements of the Marxist philosophy that he criticized? So वो structuring आना चाहिए. See, अच्छा class struggle पे कुछ बोल रहे हैं तो how he criticized, revolution को how he criticized, surplus value को how he criticizes. So every element of Marxist philosophy until you know, then you will not be able to criticize correctly. Okay. तो structuring, subtitling करके उस particular question को लिखना. So yes, with respect to class struggle, why he is saying, because it subordinated individual consciousness, right? He was critical of Marx because he gives too much prominence to the working class. But Roy feels that there is a lot of importance in the middle class, and middle class does not disappear in that sense. Then with respect to revolution, so the violent revolutionary means for Roy is not the right way of looking at things. Okay, so he says that rather than having revolution by violation, we should have instruments like education and not class struggle or any armed violence, because education can be an instrument which can bring about a change in the minds of the masses. Then he also criticizes surplus value, because he says that the concept of surplus value is not only a feature of the capitalist society, but also in the socialist society we can expect this. Okay, so there has to be nothing which is so prominent about that. Now coming to his philosophy of radical humanism. Okay, why firstly he develops radical humanism? Why? What is the issue with the existing philosophies? Okay, so first he is very much critical. Okay, rejects actually spiritualism, nationalism, communism, right? And spiritualism, because again it is an idealist stream, and Aurobindo belongs to the Roy belongs to the humanist stream, and Aurobindo belongs to the idealist stream. So rather than putting our energy on these transcendental things, okay, he says that human being, right, has to be the center of all things, and primacy of individual is very important to realize his aims in life. Okay, so that's why he is very much critical of spiritualism also. Then he says that any revolution that we are seeking to bring, okay, uh, should be done by consent, okay, and philosophy, and it should have a universal appeal. It should not be that it is pleasing only few sections, but this revolution should have a universal appeal. And when he says that it is philosophy of universal appeal, means he says that first, to bring a revolution we have to bring it at the level of the mind. So any revolution first has to be at the level of the mind of the individual, means at the level of philosophy itself. When we bring in a new philosophy, then implementation becomes easier, okay, of that particular idea or the particular revolution that we are seeking to. So the aim of Roy is key, that he wants to bring about a philosophical revolution in the very first sense. Now, so the basis of his radical humanism is the philosophy of humanism, okay, right? Attitude of mind which gives primacy or primary importance to man and the faculties of man, aspirations of man, okay. And because man is so important, rather than only focusing on spiritual aspect or communities aspect, he says that materialism is also very much key, okay. But why we have to give so much importance to man, or why he accepts this materialism? Because his eventual aim is to achieve what? His eventual aim is to achieve human freedom, which is very clear, which is very vital. Okay, so first he wants to bring in a philosophical revolution, and second, the aim of bringing a philosophical revolution is to achieve human freedom. Okay, then So why he calls his philosophy as radical? Because individual is free from all the identities of class, nation and religion. Okay, and he talks about three important parameters. Okay, so why he says humanism should be radical? Because if I have certain mindsets about my identities or the prevalent identities, I will not be able to achieve human freedom, because I am bound by those philosophies, I am bound by those identities. So to achieve that human freedom, I have to be knowing, I have to be free from all these particular prevalent identities, inequalities and other things, so I can actually focus on myself as an individual, achieve my aims, and I can actually mobilize all the things to achieve the aspirations, to achieve my goal in life. Okay, so he talks about three important elements of this radical humanism. So one is freedom in man, means freedom is very vital. One is reason, that is rationality, which enables individual to know what is, it guides an individual. Okay, but it cannot be devoid, okay, of any moral idea. It has to have whatever aspirations, aim we are seeking, has to have a moral basis. Okay, so three important key elements of the radical humanist philosophy is rationality, morality and freedom. Okay, so what is the aim of Roy? Roy wants to bring a philosophical revolution. Why he wants to bring a philosophical revolution? Because he thinks that the prevalent philosophy of nationalism, communism, Marxism, spiritualism is not sufficient. Okay, we need to bring a complete change, overhaul change in our thinking. Why he wants to bring a overhaul change in our thinking? Because he says that human freedom is very important. Okay, and how it has to be done, what are the parameters. Okay, why it is radical also is because individual is free from all these prevalent identities. Now let's move to the question, so you will get a better clarity. Now it's a long statement, but eventually I have very much clearly stated, okay, that in the light of concept of radical humanism. So radical humanism advocates a social reconstruction of the world as a commonwealth and fraternity of free men. Okay, fraternity of free men by the cooperative endeavor of spiritually emancipated moral men. Okay, so let's come. First, you will be talking about M.N. Roy. Okay, it's a, I'm sorry, it is a 20-mark question only. Okay, so he was a great Indian philosopher and revolutionary. He maintained a philosophical revolution must precede, okay, any kind of a social revolution that we are trying to do. Why? So he is very much unsatisfied with the existing philosophies like liberalism, okay, like parliamentary democracy, like Marxism, like nationalism, okay, right? He realized the importance of a new kind of socio-economic and political philosophy. So first we are talking of why he wants to bring in a new philosophy. Okay, the first aim of Roy is a philosophical revolution. Means at the level of thinking. Now, so to overcome this, he articulated a specific vision for future of Indian society in his work. Okay, New Humanism, a manifesto, reason, romanticism and revolution. Then we come to explaining, before going to radical humanism, first we explain what is humanism, okay, and then why it is radical. So humanism refers, okay, to the attitude to an attitude of mind which gives primary importance to man and his faculties. It is radical because individual is free from identity of class, nation, religion, right? The keynote of Roy's radical humanism is an urge for human freedom, okay, which implied the realization of his creative faculties, okay, and that is why he also accepts materialism. Now, Roy observed that scientific knowledge, right, liberates man from time-honored prejudices about the essence of being and purpose of his life. So that's why he is moving on to actually emphasizing the importance of reason. So we should not be guided by any kind of prevalent prejudices and other things, okay. So he gropes in darkness of ignorance. He remains a helpless victim of superstitions and fear of extraterrestrial powers. However, when light of truth makes his innate rationality more manifest, he can discard hypotheses based on ignorance. Now, what this paragraph means to say, okay, this paragraph means to say that why individual, okay, should actually realize truth, why he should not be feared, why human, as a human being you should not fear anything, you should not be ignorant, you should have very much clarity, okay, and realization of the truth that is there in your life, okay. And that is how, because we will have scientific knowledge, when we will have reason, we will not be blindfolded by, okay, this is, if I don't do this, so this will not happen. Now, New Humanism proclaims what? Sovereignty of man on the authority of modern science. Then, okay, so in order to tide over the contemporary crisis of modern civilization, there is need to create a new world of liberty, social justice and revolution beyond economic reorganization. Okay, and this new humanism inspires everyone to strive for and attain higher ideals and higher positions in his life. Man would shape his own destiny and he would become more confident and courageous. Okay. So, education is very much important in this particular aim that he is seeking. Okay. And he wants to seek a very much emancipated moral world and community. So, we'll do a value addition here. Okay. So, what are the basic elements of philosophy of New Humanism? Rather than writing them, you can represent it in a more beautiful way. First is rationality. All right. And what will this rationality lead to? Okay. Illuminates man and man is not guided by any superstitions. Then he talks of morality. What does it lead to? Okay, it leads to harmony and socially beneficial relations. Then you talk about freedom. Why important? Okay, so it leads to progressive disappearance of all restrictions. So these three are very important components or premises, okay, of his philosophy of radical humanism, okay, and how he seeks for an emancipated world community and which should be guided more. So how he gives a very much importance to what? He gives importance to education in that sense. You can also link it to the present COVID crisis and how in this present COVID crisis, okay, that human beings which are guided by rationality, morality, okay, and freedom, right, they will be able to actually overcome this crisis and combat it in a more better way. Because when morality is gone, when rationality is gone, okay, world problems are becoming more and more difficult to solve. So this is how you could have represented, all right. So not a very difficult question. Radical humanism students largely are able to what do we say, understand and put forth, okay. So I hope it is clear. There can be a question on or Bindo's views on nationalism again. It has appeared long back. So do this particular question in the best way possible. All the best. Take care. See you soon.